The fragile Saudi-UAE alliance in Yemen has collapsed, exposing a dangerous new rivalry at the heart of the Gulf. On December 30, 2025, Saudi Arabia condemned the UAE's support for southern Yemeni separatists as a direct threat to its security. Hours earlier, Saudi warplanes struck a UAE weapons shipment in Al-Mukalla, targeting Emirati-backed forces instead of the Houthis. This unprecedented move signals a total breakdown between the Gulf's two powerhouses, who once intervened together to restore Yemen's government. Their diverging visions, Saudi focus on border security, UAE ambitions in the south, have now exploded into open confrontation, fracturing the anti-Houthi coalition. The fallout threatens to plunge Yemen into deeper chaos, with the region's stability hanging in the balance. The Saudi airstrike on UAE arms in Al-Mukalla was a bold escalation, sending a clear and unmistakable message to both regional actors and the international community. This was not just a routine military maneuver, it was a calculated move designed to reassert Saudi dominance in a region where alliances are shifting and rivalries are intensifying. The strike signaled that Riyadh is prepared to take decisive action to protect its interests, even if it means targeting the assets of a fellow Gulf state. Riyadh will not tolerate Emirati interference near its borders. The kingdom's leadership views any foreign military presence or influence in Yemen's eastern provinces as a direct threat to its national security. Saudi border forces have been placed on high alert, and the government has made it clear that it will respond forcefully to any perceived encroachment. The destroyed shipment was meant for the Southern Transitional Council, the UAE's proxy force, whose recent advances alarmed Saudi leaders. The weapons convoy, intercepted and obliterated in the desert, was a stark reminder of the growing competition for influence in Yemen. For Saudi Arabia, the prospect of a well-armed UAE-backed militia gaining ground so close to its border was simply unacceptable. In a rare, severe statement, Saudi Arabia warned that any threat to its security is a red line. Language once reserved for its enemies, now aimed at the UAE. The official statement was broadcast across national media, underscoring the gravity of the situation and the seriousness with which Riyadh views the current standoff. Riyadh accused Abu Dhabi of fueling separatist offensives in key eastern provinces, undermining Saudi influence and embarrassing the kingdom. The Saudi leadership believes that the UAE's support for separatist groups is destabilizing Yemen and threatening the fragile balance of power in the region. The airstrike was a direct response to what Saudi Arabia saw as an Emirati power grab, challenging its primacy in Yemen. By targeting the arms shipment, Riyadh demonstrated its willingness to act unilaterally and decisively, even at the risk of deepening the rift with its former ally. This marks a fundamental shift. Saudi Arabia is no longer willing to tolerate a rival Gulf state arming proxies on its doorstep. The era of quiet competition has given way to open confrontation, with both sides now openly vying for control and influence in Yemen's strategic heartland. The message is unmistakable. Saudi interests come first, even if it means confronting a former ally. As tensions rise, the region watches closely, aware that this confrontation could reshape alliances and redraw the map of power in the Gulf for years to come. The Southern Transitional Council, or STC, is the flashpoint in the Saudi-UAE split. Backed by the UAE, the STC seeks to resurrect an independent South Yemen, drawing on deep local grievances and history. Emirati support has turned the STC into a formidable military force, controlling Aden and key southern ports. For the UAE, the STC is a strategic proxy, securing maritime routes and influence along Yemen's coast. But the STC's expansion into eastern provinces, beyond its traditional base, crossed a Saudi red line, threatening Riyadh's security and its vision of a unified Yemen. The STC's ambitions, fueled by Emirati arms, now directly challenge both the Saudi-backed government and Saudi authority in the region. Yemen's war is no longer just about the Houthis, it's a contest for control between former allies. The Saudi-UAE partnership in Yemen began as a united front against the Houthis and Iranian influence. In the early days of the conflict, both nations presented a seamless alliance, projecting strength and unity to the world. Their shared goal was to restore the internationally recognized Yemeni government and push back against what they saw as a growing Iranian foothold in the Arabian Peninsula. Saudi Arabia led the air war, launching relentless bombing campaigns from the skies, while the UAE focused on building up ground forces, especially by supporting and training the Southern Transitional Council, or STC. The UAE's involvement on the ground gave it significant influence over key southern regions and local militias, but beneath the surface, their goals diverged. Saudi Arabia's main objective was a unified, stable, and friendly Yemen under a central government, while the UAE was increasingly interested in securing control over strategic southern ports and vital trade routes, seeking to expand its own regional influence. The first cracks in the coalition appeared in 2019, when the UAE began drawing down its troops from Yemen. However, it didn't leave the conflict entirely. Instead, the UAE continued to arm and support local proxies, especially the STC, ensuring its interests remained protected even as its official military presence shrank. This shift left Saudi Arabia to manage an increasingly fragmented and chaotic battlefield. The UAE's STC forces soon openly challenged the Saudi-backed Yemeni government, leading to violent confrontations and further destabilizing the situation on the ground. The current crisis is the culmination of years of growing mistrust, diverging interests, and competing ambitions between the two Gulf powers. Diplomatic efforts have repeatedly failed to bridge the widening gap, and both sides have doubled down on their respective strategies. Now, the alliance has devolved into open rivalry, with Yemen itself becoming the main battleground for their competition. The conflict has escalated, drawing in more local actors and increasing the suffering of ordinary Yemenis. The Gulf's two leading powers are no longer partners, they're competitors, each shaping Yemen's future for their own ends. As the struggle continues, the fate of Yemen hangs in the balance, caught between the ambitions of its powerful neighbors. For Saudi Arabia, Yemen's stability is a matter of survival, not just policy. The kingdom's long border with Yemen has always been a source of vulnerability, especially since the Iran-backed Houthis seized the north. Now, the UAE's support for the STC adds a new threat: a powerful, rival-backed militia operating near Saudi territory. The STC's push into Hadramaut and Al-Mahra is seen as an Emirati attempt to carve out its own sphere of influence, right on Saudi Arabia's doorstep. Riyadh fears losing control over vital border regions and future energy routes to the Arabian Sea. The Saudi airstrike and public condemnation are a clear attempt to reassert dominance and prevent the emergence of a hostile, fragmented Yemen. For the kingdom, the stakes couldn't be higher. Saudi Arabia's dramatic move triggered swift, divergent responses. The UAE called for calm, denied undermining Saudi security, and announced the end of its official military mission in Yemen, though its influence through the STC remains. Yemen's government, emboldened by Saudi support, declared a state of emergency, cancelled its security pact with the UAE, and ordered all Emirati forces out within 24 hours. A blockade was imposed to cut off further support to the STC. The STC, defiant, condemned the Saudi airstrike as an attack on the south and vowed to defend its gains, reaffirming its alliance with the UAE. Each party is now pursuing its own interests, deepening the fragmentation of the anti-Houthi bloc. The coalition is in tatters, with no clear path to unity. Yemen's war has entered a new, unpredictable phase. Yemen's civil war erupted in 2014, when the Houthi movement, a group with roots in the country's north, seized the capital city of Sana'a. Their swift takeover sent shockwaves through the region, as the internationally recognized government was forced to flee, and the balance of power in Yemen shifted overnight. The ousting of the government alarmed neighboring Saudi Arabia, which saw the rise of the Houthis as a direct threat to its southern border and regional influence. In 2015, Saudi Arabia assembled a coalition of Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates, to intervene militarily. Their stated goal was to restore the Yemeni government and push back against what they viewed as growing Iranian influence through the Houthis. What followed was a devastating and protracted stalemate. The Houthis dug in across the north, consolidating their control over key cities and infrastructure. From their strongholds, they launched missile and drone attacks deep into Saudi territory, escalating the conflict beyond Yemen's borders. Meanwhile, the south of Yemen fractured into a patchwork of rival factions, each vying for power and territory, leading to frequent clashes and shifting alliances. The anti-Houthi coalition was never truly unified. It was a loose alliance of the exiled government, powerful tribal militias, and the Southern Transitional Council, or STC, which was backed by the UAE. Each of these groups had its own ambitions and vision for Yemen's future. often clashing with one another as much as with the Houthis. Over time, the UAE invested heavily in building up the STC as its main partner in the south, providing training, funding, and weapons. This often put the STC at odds with the Saudi-backed government, leading to open confrontations and deepening the rift within the coalition. The war has since devolved into a complex, multi-front proxy conflict, with Yemen effectively partitioned between competing authorities and foreign interests. Despite repeated attempts at peace talks, negotiations have failed time and again, unable to bridge the deep divides or halt the violence. The growing split between Saudi Arabia and the UAE has only made a resolution more elusive, as their competing interests play out on Yemeni soil. As the conflict drags on, Yemen's humanitarian crisis deepens, with millions displaced and no end in sight to the suffering. The Saudi-UAE rift has alarmed the international community, raising fears of wider regional instability. The United States, caught between its two key Gulf allies, urged restraint and a return to diplomacy, worried that infighting will only strengthen the Houthis and Iran. European nations and the UN fear a worsening humanitarian crisis and a more fragmented peace process. The dispute also threatens the unity of the Gulf Cooperation Council and could spill over into OPEC+, complicating oil policy. Analysts warn this is the most serious split between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi in years, exposing deep distrust. The world is watching to see if this is a temporary rift or a permanent realignment in Gulf politics. The stakes extend far beyond Yemen, affecting global energy and security. The region's future hangs in the balance. The Saudi-UAE split is a seismic shift, with devastating consequences for Yemen and the region. For Yemenis, it means more violence, displacement, and a worsening humanitarian crisis as coalition factions turn on each other. The Houthis stand to gain, facing less pressure and more leverage in any future talks. The collapse of Gulf unity weakens efforts to contain Iran and maintain regional stability. The rivalry could spill into other arenas, from Africa to OPEC, threatening broader economic and political order. Yemen's war is now a direct contest between two Gulf giants, making peace even more elusive. The suffering of ordinary Yemenis will only deepen as foreign ambitions take center stage.